Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. So for today, we're going to do another wrap-up video. We're going to discuss all the books that I have read for the month of March. But before we begin, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and click the notification bell so that you'll always get notified when I have videos like this one. So, let us start. So, for the month of March, I was able to read again 9 books. So, equal lang lahat ng books that I was able to read for the month of January and February and March. And for my Goodreads goal, the target that I actually set for myself for this year was just one book per week. But as of now, I've always been like reading 2 books per week, so I'm really so much ahead of my Goodreads goal. So I've already read 27 books for the year out of the 52 in my Goodreads goal. So let's see if I can sustain that throughout the rest of the year. And so what are the first books that I read for the month of March? So for the month of March, I read the entire An Ember in the Ashes series or quartet by Sabatahir. So the first book being An Ember in the Ashes, the second book is Torch Against the Night, the third book is Reaper at the Gates, and the fourth book is Sky Beyond the Storm. So this story is inspired by the Roman Empire, and we follow the story of our main character, Laia, who actually belongs to the slave class in this world or in this empire. So one day, Laia, together with her brother and her grandparents, were attacked by the soldiers of the empire. And during this attack, Laia actually lost her grandparents. They were killed by the soldiers, and her brother Darren was arrested for treason, while Laia was able to escape. And because Laia was very desperate and in need of help, she goes to the resistance or the rebellion against the empire and asks them to help her to get her brother out of prison. So the rebellion or the resistance agreed to help Laia, but in return, Laia has to spy in this elite military academy for the resistance. So Laia agrees. She goes into undercover as a spy in this Blackcliff Academy, where she will meet our second main character, who is Elias, who is part of the elite soldiers of the empire. And together, Laia and Elias will work together in order to save her brother Darren out of prison, and also ways on how to save the entire world from destruction all throughout these 4 books. My favorite book in the series is actually the 4th book, which is The Sky Beyond the Storm. Why? Because I cried in this book. Sobrang tagal ko nang hindi umiiyak because of a book. But reading this book really made me cry. As hindi lang cry, but habulhol cry. And syempre, I cannot discuss what made me cry in this last book kasi it would really be spoilers, but yun lang, I really cried in this book. And I really love this series because I was really very invested in the characters, and surprisingly, hindi ako super invested in our 2 main characters, which are Laia and Elias. But I still love them. I still rooted for them, especially for their love story. But I was more invested in another main character, who is Helene. A lot of people hated her. A lot of people didn't want her. But for me, I was really invested in her character, and I really wanted her to be happy in the end. Because I really felt and saw her struggles all throughout these 4 books. Yung parang ang dami niyang pinagdaanan na masakit in her past. Ang dami niyang pinagdaanan na mahirap. and I think all of them, yun yung main story in this book, is that everyone went through a lot of pain, a lot of suffering in their life, but it seems that happiness was still out of reach. Yun yung main themes here. That's why I think that I was really engrossed and invested in this, because I really wanted to know if they will get their happy ending at the last book. And because I cried a lot, siguro, please read the book and see if these characters got their happy ending, or is it a bittersweet ending. But yeah, it was a very fast read for me. This 4 books, I think I was able to finish in just 1 week, because I was the pace of the plot was very fast, and there were a lot of action in these stories. There were a lot of fight scenes na super galing ng author lang to make sure that you get pulled into the story, and parang nandun ka talaga with them in the fight scenes, and especially dun sa mga points na express talaga yung sobrang pain, nararamdaman mo yung pain that the characters feel. So I really super recommend this series, and I gave the series 5 stars, and this would be one of the best series that I've read so far for the year as well. Yep. After that, after these 5-star series, I went ahead and read another duology from V. Schwab. So in January, I was able to discover V. Schwab, and I read her Shades of Magic trilogy and the Monsters of Verity duology, and I super loved it. So I told myself I wanted to read all of V. Schwab's works. So for this month, I also read her 2 villains series, The Vicious and Vengeful. So this is an adult fantasy, and we follow the story of our two main characters, Victor and Eli. So Victor and Eli are best friends in college, and they are working on their thesis. And they decided to study EOs, or extraordinaries, or what they call people with special powers or special abilities. And they wanted to see if EOs are born, or can you make EOs. And also, what's interesting with this story is that it's set in 2 parallel timelines. So it's alternating. One chapter is set on the current day, and then next chapter would be set in like the past when they were in college. And I think it's very interesting as well, because before, when they were in college, they were the best of friends, but in the current timeline, we see that they're already enemies. Victor and Eli are the worst of enemies. So maging curious ka talaga on what happened to Victor and Eli. Why are they, kasi best friends sila in college, but now why are they the worst of enemies? What happened? So I think that's what made this book interesting. And also, this really tackles more on the thin line between, are you a villain or are you a hero? And also, what I learned about in reading these books is that it's really very hard to judge a person by if they're a bad person now, or if they're doing a lot of bad things. It's really hard to judge a person, because here in the second book, in Vengeful, we see the backstory of our characters, of Victor and Eli and all the other side characters. We see that every person, and who they are now, is really a product of all the past experiences that they have experienced, all the past experiences that they faced, all the pain, all the suffering. So talagang mahirap mag-judge. Let's not judge people, and let's just learn to understand kung bakit sila ganon, why they do all those things they do now. It's because of something that happened in the past. So I think this is also a very good book. And siguro content warnings lang. There are content warnings for suicide, for a lot of violence in these books. So please bear that in mind when reading these books. But also, reading these books, I realized how good an author V. Schwab is, kasi her Shades of Magic trilogy, her Monsters of Verity duology are really very different worlds from this one. and it really shows her talent, kung gaano siya kalawak yung skill niya in making a lot of different worlds and a lot of different, ibang-iba talaga yung feel ng writing niya in all those 3 books. So, I'm really excited to read more of what she has written. And speaking of V. Schwab, I also read her latest book, which is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So, ito yung latest work niya. This was just released Q4 of 2020 as well. And since then, it still remains in the New York Times best-selling list until today, until up to this day. Nandun pa rin siya, hindi siya nawala. And because of that, I am really very hyped to read this book. And sa lahat ng mga nakikita ko na reviews, they say na this is a very good book and they cried buckets of tears reading this book. So excited ako kasi gusto ko rin umiyak. Gusto ko rin umiyak sa book na to. But siguro, I was kind of disappointed in reading this book because when I finished it, I didn't cry a single tear. Kasi talaga ako umiyak. And siguro, I felt quite disappointed because I wasn't really invested in the story that much. So, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, we follow our main character, Addie, or Adeline LaRue. So, she was born in France in the 1600s. And during that time, I think in 1714, she wanted to escape her life, and she wanted to escape an arranged marriage. That's why she had a deal with the devil or the darkness that she wanted to live forever and she wanted to be free. So, and the devil agreed. What Addie didn't know is that she would be immortal, she would be free, but nobody will remember her. But after 300 years in New York City, she walked into a random bookshop where she meets Henry, and Henry remembers her. So for the first time in 300 years, someone remembers her. And with that synopsis, I thought I really would like it, and I would really be very invested in Addie's and Henry's relationship. Pero I felt like di ako masyadong nag-invest in their relationship because parang medyo insta-love yung dating niya when I read it, and baka parang napaisip din ako is kasi parang they just think that they immediately love each other kasi nga si Henry is the first man na nakaalala kay Addie. Baka yun lang yung reason, baka that's why they clicked. It's not really because they're compatible, or it's not just because na they really have something kaya sila nag-click, and it's just because si Henry yung first guy na nagpakita ng interest kay Addie kasi nga siya lang yung nakaalala kay Addie. And so yun yung feeling ko when I read this, na parang masyado siyang insta-love and hindi masyadong na-explain and na ipakita kung gaano naging kalalim yung relationship ni Henry and ni Addie. And siguro in the end, yung ending, yung the plot twist at the end, I saw it coming. For me, it was predictable. So a lot of people said that they cried at the end because of the ending, but for me, siguro that's why I didn't cry, because for me, I was able to predict it, and because nawala ay yung surprise factor, hindi naging super maganda yung effect sa akin ng emotionally. That's why I didn't cry with this book. But still, I think generally this is still a very good book. I still gave this 4 stars, and I would still really recommend this because this is a very good book by V. Schwab as well. It's just that nga, feeling ko nga lang, it's masyado lang mataas yung naging expectations ko going into this book. I expected to cry, I expected to be very much invested because of all the hype I got from the reviews that I've read. But still a very good read, so still highly recommend The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And then after that, after reading V. Schwab's work, I picked up the Shadow and Bone, first book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. So narinig na siguro natin that the Shadow and Bone would become a Netflix series, and it's actually going out in this April. So I wanted to read it, and kasi surprisingly, hindi ko pa nababasa lahat ng books in the Grishaverse by Lee Bardugo. So the Grishaverse, actually, I think it has the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and then after that the Six of Crows duology, and then the King of Scars duology. And I haven't read a single book, but I wanted to change that, so I wanted to really catch up with this and read the Shadow and Bone, which is the first ever book of Lee Bardugo in the Grishaverse trilogy. So this story is set in a world inspired by Russia, and here in this world there are what you call Grishas, who are like special soldiers with special powers. You can be a summoner, you can summon fire, you can summon wind, or you can heal people, or you can be very skilled in fabricating something. And when your children, the children in this world, are tested at a young age to see if they have special abilities, and if they have special abilities, they'll be admitted into the Grisha Academy, where they will learn to use their powers. And our main character, Alina, was actually tested when she was young, but she did not pass the test. She was not able to have that special abilities for her to become a Grisha. But when she grew up, and she faced this life-threatening situation, she was able to get away from that situation and saving herself and saving her friends, because apparently she has a special ability. She can summon light, or she is a sun summoner, and a sun summoner is a very rare ability in their world, and because of that she got the attention of the Darkling, who then admits her into the Grisha Academy and starts her training to master her power, because the Darkling says that with Alina's help they can save the world. And I think that's what this book is about. I've been hearing a lot of things that they say that this book or this series is not so good, and it's the weakest of Lee Bardugo's works. But I think I enjoyed this. It's not, the plot is not original, it's not unique, it's not mind-boggling, but I still enjoyed the whole experience in reading this, and I am looking forward to reading all the other books in the trilogy, the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and also the Grishaverse. So, yep. And then the last book that I read for the month is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. So in this story, we follow our two main characters, Celia and Marco, who are actually raised and trained for a magical tournament that they would partake in, which is set in this night circus. But actually, both of them don't know the rules of the game, and they really don't understand what the game is for, why they're fighting against each other, and actually in the start of the book, they don't even know that they are fighting each other in this game. So this book is it's very enchanting, it's very mystical, it's very magical, and the author's writing was able to really transport you into a different world, as in you can smell the popcorn in the circus, you can really see very clearly kung ano yung mga laman ng circus, and you're very entertained as well kung ano yung nasa circus. And I think that's what made me enjoy this book so much, kasi yun talaga, I felt like I was really in the circus with all these characters, and it's really a super magical and enjoyable read. But in the end, I think I also give this 4 stars. So yeah, these are all the 9 books I read for the month of March. And again, please let me know in the comments down below if you've read some of these books and what you think about them. And also, if you have some book recommendations, please also let me know down below so that I can also check them out. So see you again in my next video. Stay curious and stay fabulous. Goodbye!